Hey guys, if you want to learn more about fertility in your 40s, stay tuned.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Melissa, my little sidekick here. We're going to talk about fertility in your 40s today. I'm not a medical professional. I've done research, plenty of research in my... Oh, he's real cool. This is real life, guys. Baby spit up. So in my 2.5 years dealing with reproductive endocrinologists and trying to get pregnant with this little guy here, I suffered 3 losses, as I said in my About Me video. I've learned a lot along the way. Yes, I have, haven't we? So I'd like to share some of this. Maybe there's someone out there that's dealing with the same thing that I dealt with. I know it feels very alone and you're just confused by all the numbers. Some doctors don't really explain things very well to you. Along my 2.5 years, I also saw three, maybe 4 different reproductive endocrinologists. I started with one practice, which was pretty well known where I'm from. Little backstory, really fast backstory. I was in a previous relationship. I got pregnant when I was 37 years old. I'm now 42, by the way. Anyway, I got pregnant when I was 37 years old. Had a missed miscarriage at 9 weeks. Kind of knew around 6 weeks that it wasn't going in the way we wanted it to. That was devastating. No one around me had ever had a miscarriage, though I thought. When you're in it, it seems that everybody's actually had one, but at that point, nobody I knew had one, so it was really scary, and just, I was traumatized. That was my first one. So that happened in February of 2015. I got pregnant January 2015. That relationship ended. I saw a reproductive endocrinologist. I was going to be a single mom by choice. Once you've had a miscarriage, I know that many of you that have had one will understand that it's just like a feeling that you need to get pregnant again. You just become obsessed, and that's what happened. Anyway, I saw a reproductive endocrinologist, my first one, June of 2015. I did 3 IUIs with them, and I didn't really like what I was experiencing with them. Not that they were bad practice or anything, but I was also on Baby Center at the time, and I was getting a lot of information of special testing and things like that that their reproductive endocrinologists, I'm just going to call them RE, were doing that they weren't doing for me. So I looked for a different RE. I interviewed a couple people, and I fell upon this woman that was highly recommended through a couple of friends of mine, actually co-workers, and she was amazing. I did a couple of rounds of IUI with her, and unfortunately she retired, and therefore another doctor took over. I stayed for a little bit longer. I really liked their nurse practitioner, which did most of the testing, but really didn't schedule, you know, the procedures and stuff like that. Like, I had to check in with the doctor, and he and I just didn't mesh. He didn't see where I wanted to go, and you know, at my age at that point, I was 38 at that point, and they have this mentality that IVF is the only way you're gonna get pregnant. Maybe the case for some people, but I didn't have IVF money. Single mom by choice. So I went to look for a different endocrinologist, and I found another doctor, and I loved her, and she was amazing. She was great. She worked out of the same office, shared space with an acupuncturist, and she was a fertility specialist. So I had also gone to a couple different acupuncturists throughout the time that I was trying. At this point, it had been, I think at this point we're looking at maybe a year later, I guess, from when I started trying. Maybe more. Anyway, so she was great. You know, and when you go to a new doctor, you know, you get to meet everybody, you get to figure them out, they figure you out. You know, I am very self-aware. I would write down all of my information when I went to get my ultrasounds, my blood work. I always wrote down what the numbers were, everything, just because I wanted to have some say in it. I wanted to know where I stood, and you know, month to month I could compare what was working, what wasn't working, you know, like as I'll share a little bit later. I also did ICIs at that point, which are cervical what's an ICI? Intercervical inseminations. You do those yourself. So basically, I was working with a cryovac, and they would ship me the sperm, and a whole other topic. We can do another video. If you show interest, let me know in the comments below. I would definitely talk about that, and how I found out how to do it, and how that worked out, and this, that, and the other thing. I didn't get pregnant either time that I did that. I think I did it maybe 4 times. Anyway, so back to my RE. I was going to her, and I was also getting treated with acupuncture through the same office, different, obviously not through the RE's office, but they had shared office space, so they could communicate and, you know, talk about my, you know, my case. So at that point, I had had 1 miscarriage, and I had a chemical in between that time, also a chemical pregnancy. So then I fast forward to the year that he was conceived, which was 2017. So 2017, I had an IUI in April, I believe it was April. Yeah, April. And March or April. Anyway, I had an IUI. I think that was like my 10th IUI. And yeah, I did a lot of IUIs. Single mom by choice, you know, like I wasn't ready to do IVF. I couldn't afford IVF, so I just kept doing IUIs. They were covered through my insurance. So I just had to pay for, you know, the drugs, which I did anything from letrozole, Femara. I did Clomid. I did injectables. I pretty much did anything that I could within reason, because these drugs become very expensive. The pills aren't expensive, but Menopur and all those injectables are very expensive. So we did that, and then I got pregnant in April. Yeah, we did an IUI, and I got pregnant in April, and that was my 2nd chemical pregnancy. So it's sad to say that after like having the first chemical, you have the second one, and you're just like, okay, another one, you know, like, at least it's not a miscarriage, because then I don't have to have surgery. Okay? You faking? He likes to fake cough. Anyway, so, last chemical. So then, 2 months later, I get pregnant with this guy. So what happened in between that time? So I'll say that about 6 months prior to that 2nd chemical, I read this book called It Starts With the Egg. This book is highly recommended by me and many people in the fertility world. Basically, it's a book that tells you what to stay away from, what to do in your life to get yourself pregnant. Because it all starts with the egg. So basically, women are born with all the eggs that we'll ever have. Everybody knows that. When you are in your mother's womb, you have more eggs than you'll ever have. By the time you're born, a lot of them have already gone. So I remember I went to see one RE. I was interviewing one, and she said, you know, Mother Nature has this joke where, you know, you're most fertile when you're 18, but you're most ready when you're in your late 30s. And that's when, you know, you don't have that many eggs left. So, and let me clarify. You do have eggs left. It's not that you don't have eggs left. It's that you have abnormal eggs left. So, if you're born with all the eggs you're ever going to have, unlike men who create sperm every day or every 2 days, we have all the eggs we'll ever have. Okay, men create sperm every day, but it takes like a day to mature. Anyway, we're born with all the eggs that we'll ever have. So what that means that every month we drop eggs. So really quickly, I'm sure most of you know this, but if you don't, your ovaries have follicles. So when you ovulate, a follicle, 2 follicles, 3, whatever, will have eggs inside of them, and they will, usually 1 egg matures. All the other ones take a back step, and they just kind of, the one matures, and then that's the one you pop out. Sperm would, you know, fertilize it, boom, that's what happens in that part. So if you figure I'm 40 years old. I've had the same eggs. Well, I'm not 40 anymore, but I was. I've had the same eggs since I was born. You know, now, one step further, these eggs sit in like a state of frozen dimension kind of thing. That you'll read that in. It starts with the egg. So basically, they're just sitting there and they're not doing anything. So there are fertility drugs you can take to help, you know, things happen, to help them. I don't necessarily think that you're getting healthier eggs. You're maybe just getting more eggs per ovulation cycle so that you can have a greater chance of having a normal egg that will, you know, go on to be a baby. When you drop multiple eggs, which I naturally do, and most women do when they get older, because your body is getting rid of all the eggs that are left so that you can go through menopause. Thanks. So you're going to ovulate multiple eggs. I ovulate multiple eggs, and if they are abnormal, your body will probably just have a chemical pregnancy, which means that it will attach slightly to the uterine lining and then realize that this is not a good egg, and you'll just have, you know, a chemical pregnancy, which you'll get your period maybe a few days late. A lot of women don't even know that they're pregnant because they just think that their period is late. When you're trying to conceive, you know, because you're tracking everything. You know, I did the BBTs, which is the, you know, thermometer and basal temperature. I did my heart rate. What else we did? I peed on sticks, the LH sticks to check for when I was going to ovulate. I tracked everything. Like, you know when you're pregnant in that sense. You also test a lot earlier. People that are trying to conceive, we start testing at like 8 days past ovulation, which, you know, even if you go to the reproductive endocrinologist, they're going to tell you to test at 14 days past ovulation, because that's generally when you're going to get your period again. You miss your period, you're pregnant. But when you're trying to conceive, you're testing at like 8 days, which is very early, and you're tweaking these tests because they're slightly pink, and, you know, you're trying to figure out, am I pulling color? You know, it's a whole thing, guys. If you don't know about this, you know about this. So basically, a lot of people don't know that they've had a chemical pregnancy. You know, it's just your period's late. So a lot of women have chemical pregnancies. It's very hard for the human body to get pregnant. There's this great video. It's called The Great Sperm Race, I believe it's called. I don't know. I'll link it or tell you what it is down below. I had a hard time finding it, but it's just a really funny way of showing just what sperm have to go to in order to get to the egg. It's a race. It's crazy. So I mean, it's not, we are probably the least fertile, I guess, of all the animals on Earth. I call myself an animal, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, back to the egg. So, at this point, I am 40. I just had a chemical pregnancy, and I don't want to do donor sperm anymore because I'm broke. I am so broke. Fertility drugs, doing, frozen sperm, IUIs, ICIs really takes up a lot of money, time. I couldn't do that anymore. So I was gonna use a known donor. So a very good friend of mine who I dated in the past, he offered his sperm, and it worked amazingly. So what we did differently, like I said, I read It Starts With the Egg. At this point, for 6 months, I had been following It Starts With the Egg, not, like to the T, but a lot of it. So basically, she explains plastics and how they're...
And I've been cut off, so part 2 of the video is linked below. Thanks.